Today I have the pleasure of speaking with Steve Mackowski. He runs a company called PDCA Management. How are you today, Steve?
I'm fine, thank you, Tracy. Hope all is well at your end.
Steve, you have written a series of columns that have had an outstanding response on InvestorIntel, one about REO extraction processes and one on the key to success. I would like you to start with one of the series and let's talk about it briefly. You want to do the REO extraction processes first?
Yeah, certainly.
So, what compelled you to write this series?
Well, as you know, Tracy, I've been involved in the rare earths business for a long time, and I guess over that period of time, I've seen lots of confusion in the marketplace, a lot of lack of knowledge, and I just wanted to use the opportunity that I have to help people to understand some of the important issues around rare earths. And at that time that I wrote that article, that the separation of rare earths was very topical. People were talking about separation plants, and I could see that there was, although a lot of commentary, there wasn't a lot of, if you like, accurate science. So I decided to write a series of articles to put that into terms that a layman could understand. You know, it's very easy for people to jump onto Wikipedia and get technical explanations on most things these days, but to put it into language that the average player can understand was something I felt that I could do, and so I did that.
Well, how would you feel if I put you on the spot and asked you to give us an example of a company that's doing it right today?
I'll choose Alkane because it's probably one of the ones that's most commercial. Alkane, they started their business as a zirconium-niobium business and then realized that they had rare earths in their portfolio, and at the time it became valuable. They didn't make a lot of noise about their rare earths particularly, and didn't fell into the trap for them, which would have been to let's look at maximizing value of rare earths. They concentrated on their core business, which is zirconium-niobium, and they looked at the separation, producing a rare earth carbonate, and then getting others to do that extraction, i.e. being done at Shinetsu. So that's a successful model. But that's a byproduct model. But if you were to look at other models that are successful, I guess, you've got to look at Lynas. Now, Lynas has got a light rare earth project. It's obviously trying to maximize its value in terms of its cerium and lanthanum and magnet feed materials, which it's doing in-house. And then it's tolling out, if you like, its other rare earths, its heavy rare earths, with arrangements with others. So that's another success. The trick is not to go too far. Stick with your strengths, but with that in mind, you've obviously got to add enough value to make the project successful. So you've really got to look at the spectrum of rare earths and see where you can get the best value for you at your state of knowledge in the business.
Well, this is a very complex topic, but I'm going to throw another, I would argue, challenging question for you. I noticed right now that there's a lot of companies that have gotten quite secretive about what they're doing. And so what would be the #1 mistake you see some of the companies that are on the race to production making?
If they're secret, it's very good not to know the knowledge, not to have the knowledge to see where the mistake is. I think summarizes the rare earth space really is that the non-Chinese, particularly the non-Chinese supply side, are not acting together. They're they're all seem to be doing their own little thing, and when the demand side sees such a disparate group of individuals, they can't see a long-term future in rare earths, if you like, because they're not convinced that there's a sufficient supply side coming through. So I think the mistake is being secret. I think the key to success is for people to get together, not to be separate.
Well, that's a perfect segue into your Key for Success Factors series. I personally love the CapEx and OpEx discussions and the financial criteria that you were discussing and the way that you were doing this. What would you say your favorite Key to Success factor is?
Well, I think they're all important. I guess the history will tell which one's the most successful, because at the end if organisations don't get to number 8, if you remember on Dudley's chart, that is that you get enough money to get to build your plant, then none of the other success factors are really that important. I think that my favourite is the excuse me. My favourite is the new basket price that I sort of thinking about, because it. And if you remember, that was the what is the value of the per ton of material going into your extraction process, because I see that as spanning the light rare earth and heavy rare earth space. It spans and gives people an idea of what the OPEX considerations are, and so I think it's although it's a new metric, I think it's one that gives a new view, if you like, a today view on what the rare earth space is really all about.
All right, so in doing your key to success factors, you must have some kind of ranking of which rare earth companies are at the top, and I'm going to spare asking you. I'm not going to put you on the spot and tell you who the most unsuccessful one is, but would you like to describe one of the more successful rare earth stories utilizing your success factors for our audience?
Being an Australian, I'll plug an Australian company. I like Northern Minerals, if you like to use it as an example. They've put a lot of effort into getting a resource and now have a very good resource. For a number of years, they had good mineralogy, which is the second success factor, but they didn't have sufficient resource. Now they have sufficient resource. They have very good mineralogy in that it's easy to process, therefore it'll have low capex. George and it has put together a really good team, and so you've seen by the amount of news that's coming out that both from their resource side and from their technical side, they're getting some really good results. So they've obviously got a good team. That team's expanded into the marketing and finance, and so they've been able to develop good relationships and good finance. And so I guess if you looked at all of the success factors, perhaps up until perhaps the last one, being able to finance the project, that they've done a very good job.
Well, I'll take you off the spot for a second and ask you a more general question. Describe the overall rare earth sector. You're obviously a senior expert in the industry. What's happening in this space right now? What's your position on where we're at today?
I was asked the same question 12 months ago, and I was asked to, because at that stage, I think it was August last year, that the rare earth price started to tickle upwards a little bit. And I was asked, is this the end of the bottom, or is it the bottom of the end, if you remember the Winston Churchill quote? But I'm glad I didn't comment then, because since that period of time, the general rare earth space has gone down another 20%. Magnets are looking a little bit more optimistic. They've gone up 10%, but dysprosium's also gone down. So in the last 12 months, it's been a strange situation. So I'm glad I didn't pick the bottom then. Is it the bottom now? Oh, but that's a difficult question. One of my fallback positions when I'm looking at social issues or company issues, I look for natural history. I study natural history, so I look at various ants and lions and things like that and look for examples. So I think at the moment here it's spring. So spring is a time when the mountain sheep all bang heads together. It's a time when birds of paradise all go out there with their beautiful plumage and compete against each other. It's a time when the warblers all sing, trying to attract the ladies out of the hedgeways. So the point is that if it doesn't matter how well you can sing, and it doesn't matter how thick your skull is and how good you look, if the lady ain't interested, nothing's happening. And I think that's the situation at the moment, that the demand side isn't active. It's not showing any signs of life, which is disappointing. And I think you have to understand, or try to understand, why that is. So I spent some time thinking about that. Everybody's saying that the fundamentals of the rare earth space have never been better. People have predicted, TMR have predicted recently that the year-on-year growth in rare earths is going to be about 10%. And with that, you would think that there'd be some demand-side action happening, but it's not. And so I thought back to 2010, 2011 and sort of summarize what was happening then. And I guess if people that were in the space at that time, Molycorp wasn't up and running then, neither was Lynas. And so the only rare earths out there was Chinese. There was the old number of 97% Chinese supply. There was obviously a bit of political instability, and when you get that sort of, I guess, fear in the marketplace, that the demand side started to stock up a little bit. So the price went up a little bit, politics got involved, investors got involved, well, speculators got involved on the supply side. The number of junior rare earths development companies started to escalate. Price went up again. The speculators got more involved in the demand side. So all of a sudden, you had the real demand side, which is obviously the users of rare earths, seeing this price spiraling, and they said once the prices got to stupid numbers, they said enough's enough. And so they basically, because of that supply side dominance or total dominance by China, because of the very, very high price, they said, well, what we're going to do, we're going to take a course of action. We're going to do three things. Well, there's three things you can do when you get into that situation. You can reduce your usage by looking for substitutes or reducing the amount, particularly say the dysprosium in magnets. You can look to recycle, or you can look to be involved in a new supply chain, let's call it. What did they do? They successfully reduced, let's use dysprosium again as an example, they successfully reduced the dysprosium requirement in some of the smaller magnets, which was very successful, and in fact was a very good thing to do. And if you look at recycle, people were talking about recycle, but recycle is something that you need to recycle from a fairly large base. And when you have, the average age of a motor vehicle is 10 years or so, you're not going to be able to recycle rare earths from motor vehicles until you've got those cars coming back in 10 years. And so that's more of a medium to long-term situation, and particularly even longer with wind turbines, because they're out in the ocean for 30 years plus. Unfortunately, they didn't get involved in the supply chain, and it's understandable as to why they didn't, because at that time, the only supply that you could see was coming through was Lynas and Molycorp. The others were still a bit young and a bit poorly, well, not as well developed at that point in time. So if you cast your mind forward now to today, where are we? We're still in that same situation. The demand side is not involved in supply, and that is a strange situation, or it's a strange decision for me, because the logic of those 3 points has changed. The Lynas is up, Molycorp are up. We know they've got issues, but at least they're up and running. But we've now got a dozen well-progressed rare earth projects around the world outside of China that are just waiting to get into production. So the non-Chinese demand side's decision not to get involved in supply side because it's not there is no longer a valid piece of logic. So that because the supply is there, it is available, it's waiting for finance, and that's up to the demand side to get involved with that.
Well, Steve, thank you so much for joining me today. I look forward to doing a follow-up, because I have about another dozen more questions for you for the next video.
No problems. Thank you very much, Tracy.